And so that will take us back to, the building inspector.
Yeah, if you want to talk about the inspection report first before we make any movement on moving number 5 forward, that'd be fine.
So within our packet, I know that there is a building summary there, and, Mr. Bobo, if anyone has seen the Rogersville review, I know he summarized it in the Rogersville review as well a little bit. Does anybody have any questions about the building inspection summary? Any concerns about anything they saw?
Any of the cost from if this work to move forward. Any, the purchase would be made, any cost of repairs on this inspection report, it could be coming out of the capital project, correct? And not the general budget.
I would assume so.
If this bond, well, the full commission wants to appropriate it, then yes, that would be an eligible expenditure, but there's no line currently there to spend any money. Anything that comes out of capital projects fund has to flow through the commission to be approved. So.
2 places it could come from is out of ARPA funds, preferably, and then out of the capital projects.
So the cost to repair the building, once the building is purchased, can come from ARPA as well?
Yes,
If you appropriate
if
it.
we appropriate it that way.
And the only thing we know for sure for 52,000.
We don't know that for sure.
Estimated.
We don't even know, well, I mean, that's the estimate if we have to replace the whole roof. If the roof can be repaired, it may be less than that. Sarah's been working with the roofing company. You got anything further from them?
I do not. What I did was call 2 companies. One company gave me an estimate by the square footage, and then they just did a Google view of the building, and just by square footage, they quoted me a price on what it would take to replace the roof. That was the 52,000. I finally did get a hold of Morristown Roofing. They met me up there one morning. They walked on the roof, looked the roof over, and I'm still waiting on a quote from him. I actually sent him an email this morning to ask him if he had anything he could tell me, and I haven't gotten anything back. So it takes a while for them to get their estimates together, but we did have someone out that did look at the roof.
Just want to point out that in the summary, there are a lot of things, minor things that can be taken care of by the county maintenance department that would end up costing us money if we couldn't do it that way. And we may have to buy some small materials, things like that, but there's not a whole lot there that's gonna cost us immediately, other than the roof, and if we wanna put a floor in it. Change the floor. One important thing was they found a shut-off valve for the gas inside the cabinet for the gas furnace. Needs to be outside. That's $75 from Hawkins County Gas Company. But, I'll be happy to answer any of the questions you've got on that.
Mark, just refresh me, what was the price if we stay where we're at? What's the price for that roof that we've got to replace?
Sarah?
Roof and gutters was $30,000.
And then add on to that, fixing the ADA somehow. More than likely, the only way we could do that would be move the entrance down to the bottom and have an elevator put in to come up to our floor. There's windows to be done.
Windows need to be replaced. We don't have an estimate on that, but they do need to be replaced. When we were up there, I took the maintenance manager, we met with the roofer at the Churchill new bank building, and then we went over to the old building. Jason, did you have a chance to go over there? I don't think there's any way that the parking can be taken care of upstairs. The road is in such an angle that you can't level that out for parking and still be able to come from the road to the parking area. So we would have to put an elevator in.
So what's the age of that building again, Churchill? When was it built?
I can't answer that,
I
Nancy.
don't
I would have to
know.
go look.
Because, I mean.
The city county building,
Yeah,
Yeah,
78.
78.
say it had been 70s somewhere. And that would, you know, my concern was, and you all kick in on this wherever you can, my concern was, since we were asked for the inspection report, which I totally agree we had to have, where do we draw the line on how much more it's gonna cost us than the purchase price? And that's something you all have to decide.
You know, and Mr. Mayor, I guess the information that I've received has been from word of mouth, from another financial institution that sold a building that was very similar, I guess in size and usage, but in Greenville. And that building was similar in terms of, what it appraised for on the tax appraisal. And they actually sold it for a lot less, and I guess a lot less than 550, I think it was somewhere around 350, 400,000. And I guess I just wanna make sure that if we're buying this building, that we're getting it at the best possible value, the best possible usage. And I think during the last commission meeting, I made the statement, I just don't wanna buy a pig in a poke.
Right. And
I'm grateful that the inspection was done, and honestly, the inspection is, in my opinion, not the worst possible outcome. It could be a lot worse. Once again, I don't buy real estate property. I don't deal in corporate real estate or anything like that. I guess I'm just a little nervous that we may be spending a little bit more on it than I thought.
You know, the only answer I have to that is, did that building have extra land with it that could be sold to recoup some of the costs?
I don't know if that's
Because you take a look at what that urgent care paid just for their piece of property was $250,000. And it was, how big, Sarah, way less?
0.90.
0.90 of an acre. We pretty much got that in that triangle in front of us. So, you know, even if we sold that for $200,000, we're down on purchase price to $350,000. There's a lot behind it that we're trying to get appraised that could be a suitable building site for a residence, could be a business, could be whatever. Say we get, you know, $50,000 for that. We're still under what the value of that building would be, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I agree. If the plan moving forward is to sell what we can.
To actively market what we have.
Sure, and because also it creates more of a management, you know, balance for Sarah and her crew to make sure that the grounds are taken care of appropriately, and it's more money to mow the yard and all the other stuff, so.
And the purchasers of that building in Greenville, were they responsible for fixing another building to move over?
I don't know. There's a lot of ifs, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that would be my answer.
And if it's, I guess, so, if we purchase the building and the land, what do you anticipate the time frame being about, selling off whatever part of that lot that we're not gonna use, so that we can go and recoup?
I would anticipate getting the attorney to go ahead and try and, you know, get that in a parcel that we could sell.
And how does that restrict the funds that we have used? If we spent ARPA money to buy the property, and then we're selling the property after we used ARPA money to buy it, then do the funds that we take from that money become restricted with ARPA restrictions?
That's a good question we have to look into.
You know, I don't know if it does or not, but if it goes back into the ARPA pool, we certainly have a place to spend it. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to go back into the general fund. If it goes back where it came from, out of ARPA, back into ARPA, you know, there's several other things on this list that we can fund, which, you know, we're gonna talk about in a few minutes, but any money that can go back into ARPA to me is a bonus.
You know, I guess all that red tape is what maybe I have a question about. And if you buy a property with a set of money and then you sell that money, or pardon, you sell that property, I guess I would like to have a clear answer on where that money could go and how it could be used. And is there a possibility they would want to come back and get some of it? I mean, I don't know. If you're So I would like to have some clarity on that at the very least.
Yeah, we can talk to Evan.
And honestly, I didn't think about that question until right now, so I would have asked you earlier, had I thought about that, Eric.
No, it's a good valid question, sure is.
The last elevator that I think we installed was over Cherokee High School, Commissioner Barber, you remember what that was?
How much?
$400,000.
400,000.
Yeah, 400,000.
Mr. Kerwin, did you have?
Yeah, and when you're making comparisons, and most real estate people, if you start, it depends on what you're buying or selling. They want to do comparisons. Now, when you're looking at a building in Greenville, you said, in this comparison,
Yes, sir, and I don't have a lot of information other than just one person.
well, I think what you've got to consider, if you go to Kingsport, you got a lot of empty buildings up there that's going to be for sale. Well, when you go to Hawkins County or Churchill, you don't want to have that. So it's a little bit unfair to say, and I know how real estate works. I've had a real estate license for too long. You want to do comparisons. So are you buying them or are you selling? And I think that to say what square footage or something would be in Greenville versus in Churchill is just not relevant, in my opinion.
So, okay, I'll accept that. I just wanna make sure we get the proper value for what we're spending.
Let me say this much, if I felt that this was not a value for this county, I would pound the table and tell you no.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So I have talked to a ton of people about this, trying to make it, and I've wrestled with it back and forth. One day I feel like I'm for it, one day I feel like I'm against it. One thing I'll tell you is, you know, my background with McDonald's doing corporate, when I worked for them, we had flat roofs all the time. I dealt with them day in and day out. Looking at the pictures of this roof, if we don't put a roof on it now, you're going to very soon. You might repair it right now, but you're going to put a roof on it. The HVAC's a ticking time bomb. And, you know, we can go back and forth on the purchase price. It's odd that you brought $350,000 to $400,000. I talked to some people who buy and sell real estate, and I said, you know, if you were walking into this, what would you do? And one answer I got was I'd start the negotiation at $350,000. That's what I'd put on the table and start there. You might not get it for that, right? But that was the number they threw out at me. You know, I think the question we have to ask is, you know, there's lots of variable costs. We don't know what everything's going to cost. If I was a betting man, if we pay $550 for this building, I would bet we'll end up with $700,000 plus in it. And by the time we do different renovations, we do replace the roof, we're replacing HVAC. That might not all be all at once, but you're going to pay that over the next couple of years. And you know, when you weigh it out with what you're going to have to put into the city county building, that's where it gets difficult. But and buying and selling some of the property that adjoins it, that's what makes it tough. But I'll tell you, it's a hard sell for me at this point to look at. With all the information I have, it's a hard sell for me to be in favor of this right now. And I wrestle back and forth with it. That's where I stand right now.
Here's my comment to that would be, do you want to put money in a building you don't own? Because we're going to do that regardless.
And that's very fair, and I thought about that. So owning that building, the advantage to owning is if you're investing in something that you own and it appreciates in value over time, right? But you only realize that appreciation if you sell the property, and probably the odds of us selling the property to realize the appreciation over time, you know, is slim to none. My grandkids might see it sold, but probably not me or my kids, right? And that's why I would say to that is I agree in principle, but in terms of the county owning a building, sometimes it may make more sense to lease something or what have you, because it's not a business that you're buying things and then selling it to make a profit on it. That's not really the purpose. But That is a fair point, and I agree with you in principle, Mr. Mayor.
Have you been to the city county building?
I drove by it, I haven't been inside of it, but yeah, that day I was up there with you, I drove by
Okay,
it.
and there's a certain amount of, you can't put a dollar value on it, but these office holders are frank, they're trying to deal with what, is coming in there. A lot of people in a small space. We had a court security meeting this morning. They will give us a report to the entire commission, but part of that report is gonna include the fact that they don't feel like that courtroom is safe up there. So, you use the term sitting on a ticking time bomb, which I don't really agree with, but I'll use it
Yeah.
for our ADA compliance, our courtroom issues, our issues in the office holders areas. And again, I don't have a vote in this. It's obvious which way I would go,
Yeah.
but it's your all's choice.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
The one thing that I would address is what you said there. In looking at this building, and you mentioned the word lease, or in the upper east part of the county, when we find a building of this ability to be able to lease, and what would it cost us?
I agree. Yeah. I mean, and I don't know of any buildings, so let's be fair to you, I don't.
Okay.
But if there was something that I'm not saying that we should lease something, or that there's anything even available to lease,
Right.
to be clear. I was just saying in terms of government, owning versus leasing, it's not the same equation when you're talking about government lots of times as it would be for a business person or.
I understand that. And I see where you're coming from, but I just want to make you aware that, where do we have? I live in Churchill,
Yeah.
and I see the property all the time. I mean, it's just not there.
Well,
But we know we have a need to do something for these office holders in that area.
and I will say, and I don't want this to come across wrong, because I've not been on the commission very long, so one thing that I think causes me to be a little bit leery, and I'm leaning towards supporting it, by the way. I mean, I am leaning towards supporting it, but I feel like we need to hash all this out, is that usually you identify a problem and then identify different solutions to solve that problem. What I'm afraid that we've done is we've identified a solution and then we become problematic. And I say that because I didn't hear anything really about the city county building being non-ADA compliant, being too small, being cramped. Granted, I live in Churchill, I didn't go to the city county building. But that wasn't brought up as a major issue to the commission as a whole until we identified a building that we may be.
It had been previously.
Yes,
We talked about it.
Nancy, you want to address that?
Yes.
Well, a few comments that I have. If you've not been up there and actually parked in that upper sloped place and tried to get out of your vehicle, especially if you're an elderly, not strong person, or a person with any kind of disability, folks, we're one accident away from paying way more than what they're asking for this building because of just the parking. Now, once you come into the building, into my office, different days we're different degrees of busy. Sometimes people are lined all the way out that door because I have space for 3 people to stand in that little bitty lobby. I don't have it with me this meeting, but I do 42% of my transactions at that office for the folks for Churchill and Mount Carmel. That's a lot of business we do up there, and we don't have ample space.
And, Ms. Davis, I don't disagree with that. I don't. Like I say, it's not that I think there's not a need. It's just, is this what we have right now the best solution because we looked at all the possible solutions, or was it the most convenient solution that we jumped on?
Well, and I understand that, but if you look at having to make this ADA compliant, which it is not, and that's gonna come into question any time, and you start putting in an elevator, and you start having to fix all the you know, HVAC problems or anything else they have going up there, you're gonna have more money in it than you're gonna have.
And I agree. Does anybody know when the Americans with Disabilities Act passed? It was under the Reagan administration, I believe. It's not been ADA compliant since, I think, Ronald Reagan was president.
That's not.
So, I mean, it became an issue in 22. And once again, it's not so much that I don't see the need, I see the need. And it's not so much that I don't see that this building is a possible solution. What I want to make sure that we're telling the taxpayers, and I know we're using ARPA money, but it's federal tax money, so it's still taxpayer money, is I want to make sure that we're telling the taxpayers that we have a legitimate issue that we've done our due diligence to find a solution to. And in doing that due diligence to find a solution to, we found something that was of value and that we could use and look the taxpayer in the eye and say we did the best we could to save as much money as we could to solve the problem that we had identified. That's what I want to be able to say to them. And I hope that I hear in some of your responses that, you know, that it's needed and there's not any other buildings in Churchill, and once again, it's not that I'm arguing that point, but we have been ADA non-compliant for a long time.
We have, but at
That's
what
one
point
thing about-
are we gonna get ADA?
Yeah, one thing about it, we don't even have to wait till somebody falls. All they gotta do is go by there and see it's not ADA compliant, and they can file a complaint and they can sue you.
Yeah.
I mean, and this has been something that we had talked about, so you got it out in the public, everybody's aware of it. All you gotta do is one person go up there and do that. And I think what we're not thinking about too is, you know, it's gonna be $37,000 roughly to fix the roof of a building we don't own. We got windows that are gonna have to be replaced. I think the biggest thing we're not looking at is the safety issue up there. We've had a couple of incidents, just in 2 months ago, with somebody coming in up there and threatening the employees. There's no recourse for those employees. They can't get away. If somebody's in there and decides to do harm to them, they have nowhere to go.
No, there's
There's
one
no
entrance,
exit.
one exit.
And so some of those things, we're offering a convenience with the drive-through. If you do have something happen similar to the pandemic, then you've got the drive-through. Makes it a lot easier for elderly people to go through the drive-through and not. So I think some of the things we're not looking at, you know, once again, if we have to put an elevator in, $450,000. So when you start adding the numbers up on both sides, they're equaling themselves out. So I think, you know,
One other comment.
Yes, sir.
like,
One other comment. Remind me, or tell me I'm wrong, did we not have a situation where we asked the mayor to make an offer on that building for X number of dollars? And if we made an offer on that building at X number of dollars, whether it was taken or not taken, voted on or what, and now we want to come back and start negotiating the price?
Well, and I have an issue with that, Mr. Kerr.
I really have an issue with that.
I do
mean,
feel that we put
I'm
our.
sorry, but, I tell you, have a nice day.
I understand, and once again, I do have an issue with that as well.
Yeah, I do have.
The last thing that I will say, and I'm gonna move this forward, I'm gonna ask for a vote. Here, this brought to light one other concern that I have. Okay, if ADA, if the Americans with Disabilities Act has been in place as long as it has, and we're using that as a reason to purchase a new building, what other issues do we have lurking? That at some point, somebody's gonna say, well, that's not ADA compliant either. Because, you know, we have made this very public, and the point that Commissioner Barker made was that we put this out there and now everybody knows, and they can come up and fix it at any time, which is all valid. What have we not made public?
Be a good question for Sarah, but I can tell you there's one here in this building, and we're addressing that at the same time. Sarah, is there anything else you know?
I just stepped out to look at our policy on that. We have 15 days from the day of the complaint to have a resolution of that complaint.
So if someone makes an ADA complaint?
Yes, 15 days.
and the other thing that we need to look at,
Ms. Davis.
oh, I'm sorry.
The courthouse renovation happened because it was not ADA compliant. And that's what's gonna happen up there. I mean, If we stay there, somebody's gonna file a lawsuit, and they're gonna force us to do it. So, are we gonna put $500,000 in Churchill City's building, or, and still not have ample room, still not, they don't have enough space. They're happy we're leaving. It's gonna be a win-win for them, and it'll be a win-win for us. They're gonna move their offices downstairs so they can be ADA compliant, they're gonna put a drive-through in. It's gonna be a win-win for the city of Churchill and for Hawkins County if we vacate the building.
Can I just ask this, if we do not, go out of this building, are we gonna have to renegotiate a lease? And we put all this money in that building, and then they decide that they want to ask us to leave within 90 days, do we have to leave?
They can't do that. I mean,
Well,
it's
they
a,
can,
it's
if you own the building.
it's an agreement between the city and the county. We're both there.
But shouldn't the lease be at least revisited?
It probably should be if we stay. It should be, definitely.
What I'll say, Mr. Turner, you're absolutely right, and I actually made this comment to some people I talked about as far as when we authorized the offer, right, that we made. In hindsight, it's 2020, I guess, because I voted for it as well as everybody else on this committee, but truthfully, we shouldn't have done that. If we wanted to instead, we should have said, let's get an inspection report, do some things right before we make an offer. But that is a very fair point that you made. We did authorize and make that offer, and it does put us in a weak negotiating position at this point.
Like I said, I tell you, have a good day.
Yeah. I understand.
All right, so, we have, sorry, I closed my agenda, 2020.
2023-01-05.
Okay, 2023-01-05. There's not been a motion made to move it forward yet. So somebody want to make this motion?
Second.
Commissioner Turner's made the motion, Commissioner Barker has seconded the motion. If there's any further discussion? Seeing none. Ms. Davis, would you do a roll call, please?
Joshua Gillum,
No.
Tom Kern,
Yes.
Danny Alvis,
No.
Robbie Palmer,
Yes.
Jason Roach,
Yes.
John Gibson,
Yes.
Nancy Barker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And I would like to say, I've done this before. Voting for something in committee doesn't mean you have to call for it in the full commission. Sometimes you just need to air it out in the full commission. So, I do think we have a few more days to think about this resolution and ask some questions before it comes before the full commission. And everybody has a right to change their vote by the time that happens.